Hey everyone, Professor Snart just checking in again. It is now Tuesday, day 2 of our 5-week term. So I've just logged myself into Blackboard, and so I'd mentioned the other day that you really want to be doing this, just logging in, either to do work that you know is there, or just to see if there's new announcements, new messages or information, or if things have changed at all, or check grades, just to be sure you're logging in on a regular basis. So outside of the first couple of times where you log in, where you're kind of looking through a lot of the links in the course, or maybe just getting a sense for how things are arranged, just about every time you log in, what you'll see first is the announcements page here. So you'll get new stuff will show up first. So if you haven't actually watched the original announcement, the video welcome, it's a little awkward because, of course, things are now out of order, so you want to kind of go back to the most or the oldest one that you haven't watched, and make sure you watch to the most recent, which would be this one for today. Otherwise, kind of a good rule of thumb is really to click into, obviously you come to the announcements. I will go into due dates next, which is what I'm clicking through right now. And then just kind of remind yourself of what dates we're looking at. And so I can see that Unit 1, the Introductions unit, is due Friday, July 1st, and it just so happens because of the pace that we're working at here. And we want to sort of get the ball rolling quickly and leave a little more time towards the end of the course when you're working on, more involved research papers. It just so happens that Units 1 and 2 are going to be due Friday, July 1st. So it's important to know that, so you're not just looking, okay, Unit 1, Friday, July 1st, great, I'll just worry about that. If you don't read the whole list, then you can easily get off track as far as the due date. So I've looked at the due dates. I know I have Units 1 and 2. I'm just going to click myself into Units and then kind of work through them. Again, I would suggest actually looking through everything that's in both of those units before starting the work, so that you do have a sense of how much time to invest in each of the pieces. And oftentimes within the larger unit folder, there might be smaller folders, like here's the Introductions Discussion Board folder. There's your homepage folder, so it's sort of like you can drill down into the unit, and you want to be aware of exactly how much work the whole unit contains, so you don't get sort of bogged down in one of those sort of subfolders thinking that, oh, this is all the work I have to do for the unit. So Unit 1 is obviously pretty simple. It just asks you to familiarize yourself with the course a little bit, click through the buttons, see how things are set up. And then, of course, kind of two versions of the same thing, getting you to use the discussion board, so just introducing yourself in a pretty informal way. A little reminder that you want to make sure that I've even highlighted it here, that you're reading carefully and responding to another classmate. So in total, you'll have at least 2 posts for this unit or this discussion board, maybe more if you are just sort of social and friendly that way and want to say hi to a few people. But again, you don't get full credit for the discussion board, even if you do your post really well. Obviously, the point of the discussion is that you're getting some interaction or kind of feedback or sense of, other people out there in the class. So that response portion is really important. But again, pretty simple, really just a matter of getting you familiar with how the discussion boards work. And then the next exercise is similar in terms of introducing yourself, but creating a student homepage. We use the journal feature in Blackboard, but we'll just call it homepage. And again, pretty simple, even if you've never really done anything like this before. There's some good screenshots here that will sort of lead you through the steps. And hopefully, pretty simple. I've also encouraged you, I'm just reminding myself here, to look through other student homepages, particularly, you don't have to reply or comment necessarily, but could if you want. I'm not sure if the commenting feature works from the student side or not, but that's not a requirement. You're just building your own. But it is really crucial that you include a picture, and so that when you go and look at other student homepages, again, you get that sense that even though we're just doing this as an online class, there is, actual people out there, and kind of developing a little more sense of community or connectedness than might otherwise be the case. For me, that's really important, which is why I do these dorky video announcements, so that you know that I'm actually out here, I happen to be in a room with a box and a filing cabinet, but at least it's an office that I'm an actual person out here. So Unit 1 is fairly simple, a couple of introductions, and then Unit 2 really gets us into more of the work for the class. There's a short piece on avoiding plagiarism, which is huge. I mean, I shouldn't even have to talk about it. Just don't even think about, going there. It's just bad news all the way around. The problem, I think, is that especially, honestly, in the online environment and the compressed time period, people get a little freaked out towards the end of the course, and they think, oh, well, I'll borrow this little part and no one will ever know. It's really obvious, trust me. So all of this plagiarism stuff should be pretty much common knowledge, ironically enough, as far as, don't plagiarize, what is plagiarism, and that kind of thing. The next little section gets us into literary analysis, literary terms. So obviously our composition course is based on reading literary works. That word is maybe a little too, formal for what we're doing. They happen to be, pretty famous works of literature, but that doesn't mean that they're difficult or tricky in some way. They're hopefully accessible and enjoyable to read. But it is good practice to have that sort of terminology in place, even in a basic level, so that when you think about not just the writing of essays, that you're using those terms appropriately, but even knowing terminology can make your reading more effective. So if you're thinking about character, setting, plot, symbolism, simile, and metaphor, nothing too fancy in words I'm sure you know already, but keeping those in mind can really help your reading of these works in terms of, well, asking yourself questions as you're going. Well, what is the plot? What's happening? Who are these characters? What's their relationship to one another? And then how can things like setting or physical descriptions or descriptions associated with characters, how are those symbolic? How do they communicate more than just the information, the denotative meaning, kind of that surface level? How is there more underneath? Reading with those ideas in mind can help you get a lot more out of the works that we're looking at. And then one of the last pieces of Unit 2 is another discussion board based on reading from the textbook. So there's a short introductory piece, and it actually asks or explores the idea, what is literature? It's such an imposing term for some people. So you could take a short story, and if you don't call it literary, then people kind of think, oh, well, I'm allowed to enjoy this then. But if you call it literary or talk about it as literature, all of a sudden it takes on this different cast for people, which we want to avoid. So thinking about how literature is more than just sort of Shakespeare and fancy stuff can really help, again, make things a little bit more accessible. Okay, so again, I've clicked into due dates, kind of checked through to make sure where I'm at in terms of the week and the things that are coming up. I click into the units, really read through all of the units that I know are due, so I get a sense again of just how much work and how things are organized in there, and then of course just jump into it. And so, as again I've mentioned a number of times, if you do run into problems or if you see errors in the course, links that don't work or things that just don't make sense, by all means let me know and be in touch with me. I try to keep things as up to date and functional as possible. Sometimes I miss stuff. And honestly, sometimes Blackboard gets a little weird in terms of importing material that I've used before. It will sometimes revert to things that I've already changed or just does weird stuff. Sometimes links don't work that worked before. You never know. But it's really important that I find that out so I can update things or change things or make sure everything's working correctly. So again, I'll talk to everybody soon. And if you do have any questions, be sure that you're in touch with me.